Alright, episode 8 of Ball. I'm finally back. Sorry for the long wait. We had some technical difficulties with the account getting suspended, and I had some schoolwork that I had to pay attention to, so we're back. This is going to come out actually before episode 7, even though I had episode 7 recorded a month ago, but that took a lot of editing or whatever, so I'm just going to post this earlier. So today we're going to talk about the NBA trade deadline and all the ramifications, all that kind of stuff. I think I'm going to do a separate video after the buyout market and all that stuff is done. I'll do a separate video for that, talking about all my predictions and putting stuff on the line there. But right now, let's just talk about the deals that happened, the people who lost, many teams that got screwed over and all that kind of stuff. All right, so to begin the day, it was a bunch of nothing. Then all of a sudden, Nikola Vucevic gets traded to Chicago for basically nothing, like a bag of nothing. Like, I cannot believe Orlando just did this complete fire sale, which I think we should discuss those moves first. Just this complete fire sale. And they had these incredibly favorable contracts on all three of the guys they were trading, and they ended up getting basically nothing of any use. Not now or in the future. Unless one of these young guys becomes something I don't think any of them will ever become, but so basically, Nikola Vucevic, first of all, the biggest trade, and the first one goes for Otto Porter, Wendell Carter Jr., and 2 firsts, both top 4 protected. I cannot believe how incredible of a deal this is for Chicago. They get a guy. Basically, Orlando had this thing where they did all their when they re-signed Eric Gordon, and what's his name, and Nikola Vucevic. When they re-signed them both, they did them on declining deals. So Nikola Vucevic this year is earning $26 million. He'll earn $24 million next year and $22 million the following year before he becomes an unrestricted free agent. And it's just unbelievable that you have such a favorable contract, probably the best contract of any superstar in this, any star in this entire league, and you end up getting a distressed young asset, an expiring in Otto Porter, and 2 first-round picks that won't be any good because the Bulls will be making the playoffs next couple of years with him and Zach LaVine. This guy's averaging career highs in points, assists, 3-point percentage, and 3-point attempts. He's shooting 41% from 3. 41% from 3. So automatically, Chicago takes themselves from a team that probably a play-in team around that automatically puts themselves in a different conversation, in my opinion. They automatically become a guaranteed playoff team. If they push hard with some of the other deals they made, I think they can get the 4 seed is not out of question. The way the Heat, obviously, even though they improved as well, but the way they're playing, the Heat, the teams above them, the Heat and Charlotte, Boston, Indiana, a bunch of teams that aren't none of them have cemented we're taking that spot. If they really push, they can definitely get that. And they improved their roster on all assets, defensively and offensively. They improved a lot yesterday. The other thing actually in that Vucevic deal was they also got Al-Farouq Aminu, who didn't feature a lot for Orlando, but in his years in Portland, was a really good defender. And somebody I feel like sneaky in this deal, kind of like last year when Iguodala went to the Heat and Jay Crowder was involved in that deal, and he ended up having a lot more impact than Iguodala. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen because Vucevic is way better, but Al-Farouq Aminu, I think, can definitely have an impact on a team that doesn't have a lot of guys, a lot of winged defenders. Definitely, he could be somebody who can be part of the rotation and help them with that. Then the second, that was the first deal Orlando were involved in. Then the second deal happens. That's Aaron Gordon to Denver for R.J. Hampton, Gary Harris, and a 2025 protected first round pick. Another deal. I just can't understand how they got so little for all these guys. In terms of, he's another one with a declining contract. He's making $19 million this year, then $18 million, then $16 million in the next 3 years, and he's another guy shooting career highs in 3-point percentage. He's shooting 38% from 3 and 40% on catch and shoot, which is the only 3-pointer he's going to be taking now. And he'll never, ever, ever get more wide open shots than he's about to get with Jokic distributing and all that attention he's going to attract. He's also now automatically their best wing defender. Probably there was defender period and in general. Basically, this is as high of an upgrade. Everybody talked about them losing Jeremy Grant in this past summer, and there was a lot of inflation about what Jeremy Grant actually did for them, for the Nuggets. In terms of like everybody was, because he was the one guarding LeBron and he was the one guarding Donovan Mitchell or whoever he was guarding in the Utah series. But the point is, he was the one guarding the opponent's best wing because he had the size and the athleticism necessary. But he wasn't really that exceptional defender. In my opinion, Aaron Gordon's he's a significant upgrade defensively on Jeremy Grant. And after losing Jeremy Grant, this is probably as great of an upgrade of a third or fourth option and probably a number one option defensively that they could have gotten. Incredible trade. And I honestly, in terms of where one team was and where one team became, like the increase in terms of projection, I think this might be the biggest swing. Like to me, I was like, okay, Denver are good, but they can't guard anybody. No one's, who am I going to put on LeBron? Who are going to put on Kawhi? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now they have a guy that answers all these questions. And in my opinion, they just took themselves to actual legitimate title contenders. Like they could definitely, like if you told me they beat the Lakers and came out the West, I'd be like, sure, it sounds right. Sounds possible, definitely. If you had told me that before this trade, I don't think I would have believed you. Then you get the third most interesting deal. That's how I'm ranking these by what I think is most interesting or what happened that was most interesting. You got Oladipo to Miami, which was, I mean, everybody was talking about, maybe Duncan Robinson's in the deal, maybe even Tyler Hero's in the deal, which I never thought was going to happen, but like people were speculating about it. And they ended up getting him for Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and a pick swap that will never convert because there's no way in hell Miami's going to have a worse pick than Houston that in any of the next however many years. And I just honestly cannot believe the mismanagement that the Rockets have done. Like, forget that, I'll talk about the Miami side in a second, but like just the absolute complete mismanagement of the Rockets organization since Tillman Fertitta became the owner is just one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. I don't even have it written down because I just, like, I had to. So he gets hired. He takes over the team. And immediately he lets go of Trevor Ariza. He lets go of Luka Mbamute. I remember back then. He lets go of these guys because they want to get under the tax, right? Because they want to go under the tax in his first year. This is the year after they had lost to Golden State in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals. They get right to the precipice, as close as any team can possibly get of beating the Warriors. And he comes in and immediately he wants to get under the tax, right? And he lets Trevor Ariza go to Phoenix. So automatically there's a red flag. Then he forces Daryl Morey's hand into trading Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook, a horrific deal that like anyone could have told that wasn't Daryl Morey's move. And then a year later, when obviously like the most obvious thing in the world happens, that doesn't work. Now Russ and James Harden both want to go, so he trades Russ for Don Wall, which I guess was like a neutral deal. And for James Harden, one of the greatest offensive players ever, probably like if you had a 5-generation defining players, he'd be in it for this generation. And you trade him for a bunch of Nets picks that will never be good because they're going to be so unbelievably good for the next couple of years. And they chose not to get Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert. They chose to move those guys away and instead get Victor Oladipo from Indiana while sending Karis LeVert over there, right? Victor Oladipo, who was unexpiring and had shown absolutely no interest in re-signing. And when he did arrive, he obviously rejected their extension deal. When everybody had been talking about the fact that he wanted to go to Miami from his first year in Indiana, the first year when he was an all-star, people were talking about him wanting to go to Indiana all the way back then. So you go and do that deal with no guarantee that he's going to re-sign. And then now at the trade deadline, because he rejects your extension offer, you end up having to trade him for Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk. In summation, you literally got a bunch of bad picks from the Nets and I don't even know, Rodion Kurucs and Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk. That's what you ended up getting from the James Harden deal. Probably the worst, at least since I've been watching, definitely the worst superstar trade ever. Like I can't. It's probably gonna go down. It's funny now that Harden's now been involved in probably 2 of the 5 worst trades ever in NBA history. He's probably been the main centerpiece of both of them, of 2 of them. All right, so for Miami, I mean, look, for what they got him for, it doesn't matter what he does. If he's great, amazing, they got him for nothing. If he's terrible, cool, they got him for nothing. And they don't need to re-sign him, which even though I still think they will. But, I mean, he's shooting, in the 29 games he's played this year, he's shooting 41% from the field, 33% from 3 with on 7 threes a game, which I don't understand why he's still taking that many. I don't even know what to say about it. In terms of, like, I didn't watch the Rockets as much. All I'll say is, this is probably the easiest he'll be, the shot quality will probably be the easiest he's gotten in a couple years. He's maybe the 3rd or 4th option at best for Miami. He'll get open shots. That system is good. They have guys in Dragic and Butler and these guys that can run the offense and stuff. He's not gonna need to do all that. I mean, it's a very low risk move for Miami. It's an upgrade on those 2 probably, and I wish him luck, but I'm not really sure how much it really swings their moves in terms of I would have much rather seen them just trade for Lowry. I mean, we'll get that in a second. The 4th deal we have is Norman Powell to Portland for Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood. I love this deal, man. I absolutely fucking love this deal for the Blazers. Finally, like, Dame is really getting some wing help. This makes them, how can I say? I think it puts them the best of the teams below. To me, I have the Lakers and the Nuggets in the first tier. Then the Clippers, Portland, and Utah. It puts them just as good, in my opinion, as Utah and the Clippers. And if you told me they beat Denver in a series or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds right. That sounds possible. Because they're going to have possibly the best player on the court. It's debatable between him and Jokic. And with CJ and Norman Powell, who's averaging career highs in points at 20 points a game, 3-point percentage, he's shooting 44% on 6 attempts a game, and just 50% in general from the field. He was playing lights out in Toronto, and he's going to help the Blazers so much in terms of shot creation, in terms of knocking down shots. It's as he has a player option for 2021. And he's definitely going to decline it because he's not making $11 million next year. He's definitely so they're going to have to re-sign him. But overall, it's a huge upgrade for them. Toronto get Gary Trent Jr., who's also on expiring, but he's an unrestricted free agent, or he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. And they get, I assume they'll match whatever offer because he's a great 3-point shooter as well. And yeah, I think it really does help. I mean, so many teams improved a lot in this, like the Blazers, the Nuggets, Chicago, Boston, the Heat. A lot of teams improved over this past, just from yesterday, I guess. All right, for the rest of these trades that I didn't find that unbelievably interesting and I didn't want to talk about them for extensive time, I'm just going to go through them and I'm just going to give quick thoughts on them, I guess. All right, we got so Orlando traded away again with that stupid-ass fire sale. They traded another good contract. They traded Fournier on expiring to the Boston Celtics for 2 second-rounders. basically nothing. I can't believe they didn't at least get a first. The all right, hold on. All right, so for these other deals that I didn't find that unbelievably interesting, I'm just gonna run through them real quick. So we got. All right, I'll look at this one. This one. All right, so for these other deals that I didn't find that interesting to talk about extensively, I'm just going to run through them and give some quick thoughts. Orlando's traded Evan Fournier to Boston for 2 second-rounders. Pathetic, nothing. It moves the needle for Orlando, it's nothing. Again, I cannot believe how inexcusable the job they did. Trading the three best players just for nothing. I can't. Honestly, it almost annoys me. I get secondhand pissed off from these teams that are doing this kind of shit. They got nothing. I just simply don't understand it. And it's not like they were pressed for time. They could have done this in the summer. I have no idea, man. It just didn't make any sense to me. So Boston gets better. Evan Fournier is expiring, so there's that. They're gonna have to re-sign him or let him go, I guess. Then you get JaVale McGee to Denver. I think that helps them a lot. Nemanja Bjelica to the Heat. He's a good 3-point shooter, a stretch 4. I guess that'll help them somewhat. We got JJ Redick, Trey Lyles, and Nico Melli to the Mavs for a bunch of nothing. To the Pelicans, and some cash considerations or whatever to the Spurs. It helps. JJ Redick's a good shooter, I guess. Nico Melli's one of those fake shooters. Everybody just assumes he's good because he's tall and white, and he's like, oh my god, stretch 4. And you end up looking at his stats and he shoots like 32% or something, and it's like, well, what the hell is this guy? Then if he doesn't guard anybody and he can't create off the dribble or do anything but shoot threes, he gives you the illusion that he shoots threes, but he doesn't really shoot threes. He's just there. It's just a nothing move, I guess. They're just trying to make their squad a bit more white. And what else we got? Lou Williams and 2 second rounders for Rondo. That one was borderline. I would have talked about it more, but honestly, I just don't see it moving the needle. They needed more. Clippers needed more, and we're gonna talk about the what if scenarios and all that kind of stuff in a second. And then finally, my fucking team did the worst run organization probably in the history of any sport. Please. Tommy Shepard, Ted Leonosis, Scott Brooks, fuck you. You pieces of shit. Fuck you. You losers, man. Losers. And my stupid ass fucking franchise players tweeting, oh, here we go. Thinking it's like Fabrizio Romano. You piece of shit. Here we go. We got Daniel Gafford and Chandler Hutchinson. Who the fuck is who? And in return, giving away Troy Brown Jr. and Mo Wagner. I don't really care for Mo Wagner, but I think Troy Brown Jr. is going to ball the fuck out in Chicago. And we're going to rue the damn day we didn't do that. And also, it's a 3-team deal. Chicago also gets Daniel Tice, who's on expiring, for Mo Wagner, who's on expiring. And I think that's beautiful for Chicago. Tice as a second center or a power forward, I think that's going to be perfect for them. So now their bigs rotation now is Pat Williams, Vucevic, Tice. That's really, really good. Having just given up Gafford. No, I think Chicago just on so many levels got a lot better yesterday. All right, so for the what if section, let's talk about some of the deals that could have happened but didn't, or some deals that did happen but should have been done by other teams, stuff like that. I mean, the most obvious one is Kyle Lowry because he was available for a trade the whole time. The Raptors said they would only trade him to the team that he wanted, as part of the fact that he's a club legend and all that kind of stuff. And ended up not happening. It boiled down to the Sixers and the Lakers. The Clippers wanted to get in, but they didn't really have anything to trade. And they ended up settling for Rondo. Basically, the Lakers' point was they didn't want to include Taylor and Horton Tucker in the deal, which was I personally don't understand that. And the Sixers didn't want to include Tyrese Maxey, I think. For those ones, I'm not sure. To me, I don't even care. Like, all right, for the Lakers, their timeline is right now, so I really don't understand what the hell do they honestly think Taylor Horton Tucker is going to be like what, like an all-star? Because I completely don't see it. And your timeline is literally right now. And if you re-sign Kyle Lowry for 2 years and you make his deal align with LeBron, and you do okay from now till 2 years, and then they both expire or whatever, then you're left with Anthony Davis, who they think is good enough. I don't, but they think is good enough to be the number one player on a championship team. I hadn't seen it, but they think he's good enough, and they said, and with him and cap space, shouldn't that be enough? Especially when you're the Lakers. As for the Sixers, that one I'm a little bit more iffy on, just because I don't really know. In terms of that one, could have been a rental. They don't know exactly if he would re-sign and all that kind of stuff. And it's $30 million. It just takes a lot of money. They would have had to lose Danny Green as well. Then it's just a lot of depth. Whereas, I mean, it would have been a lot of depth for the Lakers if they had given up Schroeder and KCP. But just that team is so top heavy and was so top heavy last year that it ended up not mattering. Like when you have LeBron and AD, those two, like your defense just has those two linchpins, and then you add Kyle Lowry. It's almost the other two guys are just gonna feed off the energy, even though they do have a couple good defenders, team defenders in the rest of the squad. So they would have still been an elite defensive team. So that's what could have happened for him. Lonzo Ball was rumored to go to the Bulls for Lauri Markkanen. The Bulls for Lauri Markkanen, going to the Pelicans. That one I never really understood, honestly. Like the guy, I've been skeptical about him, and I still think his best ability is held back by the fact that he can't drive or refuses to drive into the paint. So his passing is marginalized by the fact that the defense isn't moving around him. If you're just standing at the top of the key, it's all well and good to have like amazing passing, but there's no movement going on. So like, who are you actually gonna pass to? But having said all that, he's still shooting the three pretty well this year, and he's clearly not the weakness on the Pelicans team. And if they had traded for Lauri Markkanen, like I guess everybody's going like, oh man, he's spacing. It's like cool. But then him and Zion's probably is absolutely the worst defense in the league. Like it's not even close. How bad they're already like one of the worst defenses in the league. So imagine if you add another bad defender in their front court, that immediately goes off. The only way I would have done that Lonzo Ball trade is if it's an incentive to get rid of Steven Adams or Eric Bledsoe, which ended up not happening. And I assume they still have the opportunity to sign and do a sign and trade deal for Ball. But I can't imagine it's going to happen. I think he's part of the future for them. They just need to find... I mean, this is if David Griffin was that guy, if he was Daryl Morey, the way Daryl Morey just fuck it. He was like, I don't even care. I'm going to attach a pick to Al Horford. I'm going to send it to Siberia. It doesn't matter to me. That's what... If David Griffin was a real manager, a real GM, that's what he would be doing. He'd be like, okay, I made a mistake on Steven Adams. Okay, I made a mistake on Eric Bledsoe. I have 50,000 picks, most of which aren't even that good, by the way, right? I would just trade them. I mean, like, this is the thing. It's going to boil down to this for the Pelicans and the Thunder. Like, the pick quality, especially for the Pelicans, is just not good. The Pelicans have this whole treasure chest of picks, and it's Lakers and Milwaukee Bucks picks. Those aren't going to be good ever. As long as Giannis just re-signed the Supermax, which guarantees those picks will never ever be good, right? And LeBron is on the Lakers, so those aren't going to be good. And even when he leaves, they'll still have Anthony Davis and cap space, and they'll probably get another superstar, and then those picks will be good again. So just in general, start trading these picks. The idea of these picks the idea of these picks right now are gonna be worth way more than what they're actually going to end up being. Because when these picks start converting and they're 25 and 27 every year, and you're going to be the Celtics. That's what you're going to be, right? When Ainge had this unbelievable treasure chest of, I have a Memphis Grizzlies first, which when they sucked was like, oh my God, what's that going to be? The number 4 pick? And then he has, I have the Sacramento Kings when they sucked. I was like, oh my God, is that going to be the number 8 pick? No, they ended up both being. They ended up. The Kings got De'Aaron Fox, and they almost made the playoffs the year that Boston had their pick. So that ended up being nothing. And then the Grizzlies got Ja Morant, and they ended up being good. And then that pick became nothing. And this past draft, Celtics had 3 picks all in the 20s, or like below the lottery, which meant nothing. They got nothing out of it. So start trading these picks. Start getting some valuable players. And most importantly for the Pelicans, start spacing the floor for Zion. It doesn't make any sense to have Steven Adams there. You gotta attach a pick in the summer. You gotta attach a pick and get rid of that guy. And they should have been. Now the other talking point about the Pelicans is they should have been the Vucevic team. The Warriors, the Pelicans, and Charlotte, by my estimation, all had as good, if not better, trade assets, trade deals to do for the Vucevic pick. I mean, like, just simple as this. Warriors could have done Oubre, Kevon Looney. Oubre isn't expiring, so there's that. Then you give him, like, Eric Pascal, if that's the young guy. That's the format they followed. The Bulls gave them young guy and Wendell Carter, big money, expiring, and 2 firsts. Warriors could have easily done Oubre, Eric Pascal, and if they don't like, and add some filler, some salary fillers, and if they don't like that enough, you give them the Minnesota pick that's top 3 protected this coming draft, and you give them an existing pick that you have, and you get Vucevic, which you think is going to be really good, and that would immediately make you a serious team. The Pelicans could have offered 5,000 picks and maybe Lonzo Ball or something, and gotten Vucevic and opened up the entire court for Zion, because he's not just a throwaway stretch 5. He's a real stretch 5. And then Charlotte is an interesting one that I didn't see anyone mention, but I think they've been talking about getting a big forever. And in terms of what they could have done, they had the Biyombo or the Cody Zeller expirings, and then throw in one of the young guys. They have a bunch of young guys. Anyone not named LaMelo Ball, they could have traded Devontae Graham, Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, any of those guys. I'd have been fine with giving up any of those guys for that, especially for that contract Vucevic is on, and a couple picks. I guess the picks might have been where they were reluctant, but I think they could have gotten that deal. So in the end, a bunch of teams improved. Denver made themselves real title contenders, I think. The Blazers put themselves right below what I think is title contender, but if you told me they would upset one of these teams, I wouldn't be completely surprised, especially if they get Nurkic back fully healthy and going into the playoffs. Chicago made themselves a hell of a lot better. They're not going to contend for anything, obviously, but I think they have cap space next year. If they get Levine, Vooch, and maybe somebody else. If they got Lonzo, that would have been incredible, but maybe they can revisit that in the summer. They have an avenue at becoming serious. Miami improved. Boston improved. A couple more teams, but not enough, in my opinion, to put them in any interesting conversations. I just thought the Lowry... That was a team I forgot to mention for Lowry. In my opinion, that deal, if you're the Heat, you have to do that deal. I don't give a fuck if Tyler Hero is involved. You have to do that deal. Just in terms of, if you looked at it, if they had done the Lowry deal, in my opinion, they probably end up with the best opportunity anyone has at guarding the Brooklyn's 3. In terms of Kyle Lowry on Kyrie, Jimmy Butler on James Harden, and Bam Adebayo on Kevin Durant. That's probably as good as you're probably going to get in the entire league. That's as good of a shot as you're going to get at guarding those 3 guys. You're not going to stop them, obviously, because they're incredible, but that's as best as you can hope for, slowing them down. And now that it's somebody is going to end up, I mean, I assume it's still going to be Jimmy on James Harden and Bam on Durant. Somebody is going to have an unbelievable mismatch against Kyrie. If it's Dragic or Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson or whoever it is that's going to end up guarding one of those guys, it's a mismatch. It's Trevor Ariza maybe. Whatever it is, it's not as dependable as Kyle Lowry would have been. And I think that was a mistake on their end as well.